Hello, my name's Dan. I'm with the training department. And today what I'd like to talk to you about is SKS column refrigerators leveling legs. Now I've got a wine cooler tipped over on its back right now. Since SKS is new, and as we learn more and see more and find out better ways to service and to take care of problems, we'll set out more little videos like this. This video is going to be about the servicing and or replacement of the adjusting legs on the SKS column refrigerators. Now, on the SKS refrigerator, you've got two Phillips screws. You've got one right here, and we'll have Madison get an overview, and you got one over here, right there. This one runs this leg, this one runs the back leg. When the legs are all the way withdrawn, or in other words, they're all the way up, the unit sets on these 8 rollers. That allows it to be pulled in and pulled out of the installation area. Then, once it gets in the area where it's going to stay, the install is required to run the legs down to get the weight off these plastic rollers. And this also gives you the ability to adjust and level the unit. Now, in the installation guide, it says, do not, if using a cordless drill, put on anything above number 1. The reason is this little connecting rod that goes from the front to back here is about 3/16 aluminum. And we've already seen what happens when somebody uses an impact on it and zips it down. This got to the very end and it snapped the rod. We also saw where, still haven't figured out how it happened, but during an install, one of these got bent. Now, you can pull this rod out from the front, and if that's all that's wrong, you could replace it without even uninstalling the unit. Now, the bad thing is if it got snapped, and let's say that much of it was still back here, you're going to have to pull the unit out at least far enough to come in here to the side to pull that out and put the new rod back in place. Now, I haven't looked up the part numbers, but I've taken both these apart and had them in my hand. They are very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the exact same part number. But guys, this is that metal rod. This metal rod will actually fit in the other one also. That's why I think these two parts, or actually all 4 of them, are going to be the same part number. But regardless, always check your part numbers. So just off to the side, on the outside of both of these, there's a little notch that holds this. This drops all the way down until it gets in the slotted spot, looks like a Phillips, and then pushes in. Now, and I'm going to turn this slightly so you can see this opening that's about to come up. I've got a fairly low power drill. Very slowly. That's why they want it on a 1 power, because if you hit it with an impact, you're going to smack it. But you can now see where I've got almost a 1/4 inch of rise there. So that's why they tell you put it on 1 power. Then when it starts going tut 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 tut, you take it off and then use the hand driver to go ahead and finish making your final adjustments. You don't want to hit this with an impact because that's a small aluminum rod. At this point, we'd have had the refrigerator off the roller in the back, we'd have done the other side, and then come and do the fronts. Now, go ahead and just put this back where it was. Pretty much there. All right, so now, if you get out and one of these is stripped out, guys, all you have to do is remove 2 Phillips screws. There's one on top and one on bottom of each one. Now, unfortunately, you will have to get the unit out and tilt it. How far you have to tilt it depends on, if you have a ratcheting wrench with a Phillips on it where you could maybe tilt it over enough to put a brick under there, you could remove these 2 and drop it. It's still going to require a second man to assist for safety, but it's not a hard job. So like I said, an offset Phillips Give yourself about 3 or 4 inches under there, and you could very easily take this off. Now once it comes down, you got to pull it out just enough to get that leg. It goes up in that little hole right here, just like that. Get the other Phillips before I lose it. And the part itself, there's a plate over it. There's a little grease there, so don't get it on your clothing. What can get stripped, guys, is this little gear. You see where the gear is against this gear, which is making the leg go up and down. On the front, it's the same box, but all you're doing is screwing directly into that Phillips slot. And there's one on each side. That's why I say these are probably the exact same part number. But when you go like that, that's what's turning the gear. And that plate is keeping that from riding up. And that's where we get our adjustment for our refrigerator. Now, if I had gone out and found this gear had been stripped, I'd go ahead and replace the whole thing. I'm not going to sit here and worry that when this stripped, did it mess up one of these cogs here. I would just order this entire assembly. And that way I know I've got everything I need to get this unit back on the road. So once you've got that, you put your plate back on, grease side down. And this rod, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. Let's say this was mounted. This rod just goes in here and pushes down however far need be to where the head rests right up here on this lip. That way you can screw it from way up here in front to adjust these rear legs. Very simple. And like I said, this just pulls out. So as long as they didn't snap off this down here, you don't have to get behind the refrigerator or pull it out. Just remember, if it's bent, maybe you can pull it out the front, but if it's snapped, you're going to have to take and get that part out and then see is this still good. A lot of times it may just be if this got bent that you only need the connecting rod. But always verify, run it up, run it down a couple of times, make sure it's doing its job before you walk away. So this is how you would service, get to, and replace if necessary the leveling legs and the connecting rod on the SKS column refrigerators. Pretty simple when you get to see it like this. And all that, luckily here in the lab I was able to lay it over, but I've done this enough. If I were to lean this, put a brick under it, have somebody spot it, just where I could get an angle Phillips in there to get the 2 screws off, I'd be golden. All right, on behalf of the training department, this is Dan. Be safe out there.